You're watching Newsfeed AM. Let's pick up on the markets now. The Rand recovered significantly over the past week, supported by the South African government's attempt to de-escalate tensions with the United States. And this has all got to do with the relationship with Russia. Domestic data pointing to some signs of life and a softer US dollar ahead of the US Federal Reserve's policy meeting this week. Gary Booysen is portfolio manager at Rand Swiss, joining us now for a quick analysis of how things are likely to shape up this week. Gary, good morning to you. Let's start with your overview of how the markets have opened in early trade and what factors are likely to influence trade in terms of the market trends this week.
Yeah, so no big moves this morning. We've got the top 40 essentially flat, with the resource index falling around 1%, but that being made up by the industrial index up about 0.6%. So net aggregate, no overall move in the index. Yeah, as you mentioned, I think the big news this week that's going to move markets is definitely that FOMC meeting on Wednesday, the US Fed meeting to decide whether to hike interest rates one more time or to potentially pause. I think our internal base case is that we are going to see a pause this week. We've got the US inflation figures the day before, so on Tuesday we're expecting to see inflation in the US fall from around 4.9% down to 4.1%. And then locally we've got on Wednesday retail sales, so expecting retail sales to decline around 1.2%. And then mining data tomorrow as well, expected to show a small uptick. So a little bit of corporate data, but I think all eyes are going to be on that Fed just to see what US interest rates are doing, and obviously that feeding to central banks throughout the globe.
Yeah, let's quickly launch into company news. Thungela Resources publishing its trading statement for the 6 months, which ended on the 30th of June 2023. Talk us through those developments. How are they faring?
So I think given the underlying conditions, not too badly. So they are going to see a decrease in their earnings per share for the first half between 66% and 75%. But that is really on the back of the lower coal price. So, the aggregate coal price for this period is roughly $135. In the preceding period, it was $270. So you can see just the massive fall that we've seen in coal price is obviously going to affect the company. And I think that more than priced into the share price. The share price obviously already pricing into those declines in. Part of this was the warmer winter that we saw in Europe. Part of it is the flow of coal from Russia into Asia, and that's suppressing coal prices in Asia, which is essentially Thungela's outlet for export coal. They also are still struggling with obviously rail infrastructure in South Africa too. They have plans to try and improve just the rail, their partnerships with Transnet to see if they can export more coal. But that is a drag, different to most other companies, though, obviously, I suppose, being an energy producer, load shedding is not materially affecting their numbers, but that's obviously because they are an energy company and can produce a lot of their own energy requirement.
Yeah, let's stay with mining stocks. Glencore confirming that it has submitted a proposal to the board of directors of Teck Resources to acquire Teck's steel-making coal business. What do we know about this offer, Gary? And what does it mean for either side should the deal come to pass?
Well, I don't know if this deal is going to come to pass. So remember, this is part of quite a big battle between Teck Resources and Glencore, in which Glencore has offered previously, just under $23 billion to buy the whole of Teck Resources. That's been rebuffed twice. And now you've got them essentially just aiming for their coal assets. They previously valued these assets around $8.2 billion. And, the plans now with this latest proposal is to buy the coal assets and actually demerge Glencore's coal assets and Teck's coal assets into a separate listing. Teck does want to get rid of its coal assets. It is trying to exit the coal industry, so maybe it will go through, or maybe it's part of a grander strategy by Glencore to try and get a solid price on the coal assets to make a more compelling case for the overall issue of Teck Resources. So we'll watch the space with interest. And Teck Resources has come back and said they have multiple suitors for their coal assets. So it remains to be seen whether they'll be selling it to Glencore.
Interesting indeed. Let's conclude the conversation with the South African Revenue Service gunning for a multinational sportswear manufacturer. This is Adidas, over unpaid taxes. SARS is accusing the sportswear company of underpaying customs duties. Help us make sense of what's going on there.
No, when it rains, it pours for Adidas. So Adidas obviously coming off big write-downs in inventory after the discontinuation of their partnership with Yeezy, obviously Kanye West's brand. And now SARS is after them. So they haven't raised any provisions in their numbers, although they have acknowledged that there is this dispute over customs duties. So essentially the debate is around how they've treated the import of their products for distribution in South Africa, whether it was the international company importing, whether it was the local company importing, and there's a difference there in the value of the taxes that need to be paid. SARS is obviously contending that the taxes should have been paid, they should have paid more taxes, saying that essentially they short paid by around 1.9 billion. Adidas hasn't raised, as I said, Adidas hasn't raised provisions and is going to see them in court around it. So this is going to go to court. They're going to take it through the legal system to try and get a resolution. And at this stage, it's still going to be a long running story, I think, because at this stage, it's not even at the Supreme Court, and they've already expressed, the desire that if the courts don't rule in their favor, they will take it to the Supreme Court as well. A bit of history though, SARS has, it's a slightly different matter when they went after Levi in the same way, essentially saying that they were dodging tax because of fictitious invoices. SARS in that case actually lost in the Supreme Court. So we don't know. When it comes to these kinds of debates, the big four audit firms get paid a lot of money to assist. But so we don't know how it's going to fall. But as it stands, it does look like it's going to be a cloud over Adidas for some time to come.
Gary Booysen, thank you very much for that markets update.